It's time to sit back, relax, and talk some Heidelberg football. This is the Scott Donaldson Show here on WTTF, AM 1600, FM 93.3, and on the web at WTTF.com. Tonight's show is brought to you by the Berg Bistro 1850 and these community-minded sponsors: Kimmel Cleaners, Harrison Price Insurance, National Machinery, Subway of Tiffin, Tiffin Brake and Wheel, and the Tiffin Buffalo Wild Wings. And now, live from the Berg Bistro on the campus of Heidelberg University, here's your host, John Kearns.
Last week, and the Berg with a big victory in week number 1 over Olivet College. And we'll talk about that game here in just a little bit. I'd like to thank the Berg Bistro 1850 for their hospitality, and we like to give them a shout out, Coach Scott Donaldson, every week. And I see more students here this year than I have in the past, and I think there's a little reason for that, right?
Well, yeah, obviously you.
Well,
no. You're here. I mean, this place is dead without you, But, no, the food's fantastic, and they keep making some great changes to the menu, and you're going to see more people here because the food is unbelievable.
Open, I believe, 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday. I think open till midnight on Friday and Saturday nights, and then a little bit cut back on the schedule on Sunday. But a great place to come over, and it's not open just to students. It's open to the general public. So if you'd like to come over and be part of the campus scene, you're more than welcome, right?
Absolutely. Bring out a lot of people come over from National for lunches. It's open all the time, so come on over.
All right, on the show tonight, we'll talk about the big win here in just a little bit with Coach Scott Donaldson. We have a couple players on tonight. Collin Pecoraro, who is a sophomore, I believe. Wasn't last year his first year?
Yeah, but he's more of a senior in the classroom.
Okay.
So he long story, but he's doing well for us now. But I think it's hopefully maybe we can get him for another year. We're still working on that, but he's playing for me now. That's all I need.
That's for sure. And then we know this guy is a true freshman. It is Zach Blackiston, and he was not on the the depth chart as far as the first two teams before the game against Olivet, but he is now. What a monster game he had on 2 weeks ago on Saturday.
Yeah, Zach really showed out. He came in playing outside backer, DN kind of hybrid for us, and it really was the third guy in. Didn't get into the second quarter, and his second play of college football gets a huge sack on third down, huge 10-yard loss. And at that point, I couldn't take him off the field. He forced me to play him. And he showed out. What do you have? 16 tackles and 4.5 sacks.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. He was everywhere. And it's pretty rare for a true freshman to not only be on the field, but be on the field making a lot of great, huge plays for us against a great team like Olivet. I mean, after we kind of had that muff punt, Zach took over. I mean, first play was a TFL, second play was a sack, and then all of a sudden they're out of field goal range, and it's 3rd and 20. So really unbelievable showing out of Zach. We'll get to talk to him, with his long ginger hair here, so it'll be nice.
All right, Coach. Also, we'll talk to defensive coordinator Branden Jakubcin, who's been here for a while here at Heidelberg, and we'll talk to him about what he thinks of his defense from the Olivet game. And then we'll get back to Coach Donaldson, the last segment of the show, and talk about the Capital game prep. The Berg will play at Bexley, Ohio this Saturday night, the second night game of 4 this year. And they'll play at Capital, a team that was picked toward the bottom this year, but boy, they had a offensive showing against Marietta. We'll talk more about that, but they almost won that game. All they had to do was convert the 2-point conversion in the last minute, but came up a little bit short. They lost 51-50 at Marietta.
Yeah, and if you want me to get into that game, that was an unbelievable game to watch. Where we were actually able to watch it. It's funny because all of us coaches had a wedding in the area. One of our alumni got married with a bunch of high school coaches there too. We're all watching the game on our phones while they're having their first dance and everything. And their offense is terrifying. I mean, they put up some serious numbers. Their quarterback was unbelievable, and he's been great all year. He's been great for 3 years for them. But that game was absolutely insane. I mean, just the points that were scored and the plays being made on both sides of the ball for both teams was just it was flabbergasting. As a coach, you just pray you never get into that situation, especially I'm a defensive head coach. Let's face it, I'm a defensive guy, and those 50 to 50 games aren't really fun to be involved in. I promise you that.
Okay, Scott, we'll talk more about that game and more about Capital later in the show. And, we haven't talked much this year about high school football. I know in the past we've touched on high school football and did a little research today, and I should have known this. I knew part of this, but there are actually 12 high schools that border Seneca County in one way or the other. Some of them are just slightly in the county. Some of them are right in the middle of the county. But tell you what, here in Tiffin, both high school teams are doing really well. I know Columbian has struggled the last couple years, but they're putting it together this year. They are 2-1, and they had a big victory, probably their biggest win of the last few years. They beat a very good Ashland team last week.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, a bunch of the coaches were there. I was on the sideline for most of that game, and wow, what a game! And Coach Lutz has done a great job of getting that program. And it's not about getting it turned around. Just he's needed some time to not only get his guys some experience, but to get his philosophies, get his the way he coaches, his coaching culture in place, and you can really see it now. Because God's honest truth, you look at that game, even from the outside looking in, it's not a game Columbian probably should have won. And those kids showed so much toughness, so much grit coming out, and Coach Lutz did a great job. I mean, I texted him right after the game that fake punt he called about midfield there in the third quarter there really turned around the game for him. Not only a great executed play, but a pretty tough call for a coach to make, and I love that he made it. The guys really feed off his enthusiasm, and really what I'm surprised is not only just Columbian. Calvert is doing an unbelievable job. Coach Reeser has really turned that program, not really turned it around because they haven't been bad lately, don't get me wrong. But Coach Reeser's done some great things with that program, beating a school they haven't beat in I don't know how long in Norwalk, St. Paul there. So it's really exciting for when I see local high schools winning, and especially Tiffin, Columbian and Calvert, because those are the really local guys. But nothing's better than on a Saturday night when all four local teams win. You get Columbian, you get Calvert, you get Tiffin University, and obviously us being the most important. But, when all four, that just raises the spirits of everyone in this community. And you can really feel it when you're out and about and everything. And it's just, there's a buzz about us in the fall. Tiffin is a football community, and I love to see when both high schools are really firing on all cylinders, getting wins.
All right, Columbian this week will play at Toledo Start, a good team at 2-1. And Calvert, ironically, will play at Gibsonburg, where Coach Reeser spent a number of years, and he turned around that program as well. And so that'll be a little bittersweet for Coach Reeser. I know he's a Tiffin guy, he's a Calvert guy, he's a Heidelberg guy. But you spend, years at a community, and you get a little entrenched, and so a little homecoming for Coach Reeser at Gibsonburg this coming Friday night. Yeah,
and again, Steve's a Heidelberg guy. He actually, his last year coaching Heidelberg was the year right before I got here, so I've known Steve for 15 years now. And he did some great things for Gibsonburg, and leaving Gibsonburg was not an easy decision for him. So I know this will be a really bittersweet for him, and I've never had to experience it because I've really only been at Heidelberg, but coaching against guys that you've seen growing up through your program, it's not going to be an easy thing to do. But he still has a job to do, and I'm sure they'll be fine. But it's going to be a tough game for them. Gibsonburg's not a bad football team.
Okay, and just a few other things to point along as far as high school football in the county. Also undefeated at 3-0, Seneca East. They beat Elmwood last week. They play at Bucyrus this week. And Mohawk, who just beat Gibsonburg 16-0, I believe, and they'll play an undefeated Cary team this week too. So that's two more teams that we're keeping an eye on with Seneca East and Mohawk.
Oh, I can't wait for. I don't know when those two play each other, but I'm definitely going to be there. I've seen Mohawk play this year. I've seen Seneca East play this year. They're both very big, small schools. They're big up front. Both of those teams. And it just, I know the Mohawk-Cary game is always a little bit of a rivalry. You never know what's going to happen, but I just can't wait for that Seneca East-Mohawk game. Both teams are really firing on all cylinders right now. They are really rolling.
All right, just to touch on other schools. Hopewell Loudon 1-2, Foster is 1-2, Cary at 2-1 so far. Bellevue is 0-3, which is very uncharacteristic, but they played a killer schedule so far. Clyde's 1-2, same way, tough schedule. Lakota at 2-1, Arcadia 1-2, and Van Leeuwen 0-3. So 12 different schools that are either in Seneca County or just touch Seneca County that play football. And there's a couple other ones like New Regal and Old Fort that don't have enough students to play football. So that's 14. So the county really has quite a few high schools. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's talk about the win a couple weeks ago at home against Olivet, your only non-conference game of the year. It was one of those deals where you had a pretty good start and a great finish, winning the ball game 21-17. Let's just fast forward to the fourth quarter with about 5.5. Your offense sputtering a little bit, and maybe that's due to Olivet's defense, but you scored 2 touchdowns in the last 5:35, and Trace Reynolds with a long run, I think 44 yards, and then a nice drive in the last minute, I think with 1:11 to go. Nice 17-yard pass play for Reynolds to Braden Jerome to win the game. How about that?
Yeah, that was definitely a game I'll never forget my entire life. I mean, just the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter were unbelievable. And I told the guys at halftime, and we talked about this at halftime, that the biggest advantage Olivet had against us going into that game was the fact that they were an experienced team. I mean, they returned darn near everybody from a good football team last year, from a good 6-4 team the year before, where we didn't. You know, we talked about a couple of weeks ago that we lost 18 starters. So the first half, you know, we came into half down because we were inexperienced. A whole lot of guys, 18 brand new guys that are starting the game for the first time in their entire lives. So once I think we got our bearings underneath us, okay, we calmed down, we were able to just play football. I wish it would have happened a little bit sooner than 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter for my own heart, personally. But you're able to see those guys actually just play. And once they just started playing football and having fun out there, then you're able to see those drives that honestly could have happened in the rest of the game. And don't get me wrong, Olivet's a very good football team. Their front six defensively is going to be one of the better front sixes we're going to see the rest of this year. Definitely the biggest, I promise you that. They were huge. But once our guys played and started just playing, I don't know if anyone could have stopped us at that point. And that's why I'm so excited moving forward, because now everyone's got experience. All the guys that are going to be starting this week have started games before now, so we're able to see them at their best, just playing football and having fun with each other out there. But yeah, that last 5 minutes was pretty wild. Not just offensively, and you saw Trace and Braden and the rest of those guys making plays all over the field, but defensively, and you're going to talk to a guy that I really think it really made the game for us, defensively, coming up with some huge stops late in the game that honestly we haven't seen in a couple of years.
Well, your senior quarterback, Trace Reynolds, a dedicated backup for the last 3 years. And another thing we pointed out last week is that over the last, 10 years, you've only had 3 or 4 quarterbacks. So, you've had guys that would play 3-4 years. And so not a lot of opportunities out there for quarterback. But Trace, I think, did a great job. 337 yards of total offense. He threw for 2 touchdowns, and he proved that he can run the football in that 44-yard run. Once he got, he broke away toward the middle of the field, no one was going to catch him.
No. And honestly, in the open field, I don't know if anyone's going to catch him. Yeah, I mean, once he gets going, I mean, he doesn't run like a quarterback. And I think that's one thing. When you watch him run, he looks like a running back running the football. And that's what makes him so dangerous, that it adds a dimension to our offense that we haven't had in my 15 years. And you talk about that. My 15 years coaching at Heidelberg, we've had 4 quarterbacks.
That's why, yeah.
Steve West, then went Andrew Miller, then went Mike Meese, and then went Tyler Stoyle. I mean, legitimately, 15 years, we've had 4 quarterbacks, Trace being the 5th. But no one's been able to run the ball like Trace can run the ball. His passing is every single day getting better, and we saw that at the end of the game. I mean, he's hitting some really tight windows, and that's only going to get better. But adding that to an offense as a defensive coach, trust me, that gives you nightmares, absolutely nightmares.
And staying on the offense, your two running backs, your tailbacks, Branden Short and Jace Grossman. They're not the breakaway tailbacks we've seen in the past, but boy, they work hard and they really get into it, behind that experienced offensive line. So not a lot of yards, but they were effective.
Well, yeah, there's no question. And you're going to see much more of our run game as we go future through the season because, number one, Olivet was very, very good up front. They're, like I said, their front six were huge. They were extremely good at stopping the run. And it really limited us, but they were committed to stopping the run, so we had to find some windows with the quarterback running and getting the ball out on the perimeter with throwing some bubbles and some hitches on the outside. They weren't going to let us run the ball inside the tackles, and we realized that pretty early into the game, and that's why you see the carries on Jace and Branden kind of not as much as they're going to be throughout the season. But those two backs are two of the best backs in this conference. I firmly believe it. They're big. They're physical. You talk about the breakaway speed. Once these guys get in open spaces, there's not too many teams that are going to be able to catch up to them, I promise. They just weren't able to get into open spaces a couple of weeks ago there. But really excited to see their progression. And the funny part, they're best friends. It's hilarious. The two Toledo guys going out there, they feed off each other. It's really funny to see.
Okay, let's talk about the defense. Defense did give up 17 points, not a lot, but were you overall pleased with how the defense performed? Again, inexperienced, but got the job done big time.
Absolutely. Really proud of the defense. Number one, Coach Jakubcin, who you're going to talk to in a minute, had a great plan going into this game and made some unbelievable halftime adjustments. I mean, second half, we did a great job of just shutting that offense down. And that's, like you said, a lot of inexperience. And as coaches, we were still on the fence about a lot of guys different playing. We talk about Blackiston, who you're going to talk to in a minute. Like I said, he was the third guy in. Guess what? He's not the third guy in anymore.
I think he proved himself.
He kind of proved himself. So there's a lot of question marks on not only what you're doing, but also who you're playing. So what I'm getting at is I'm really proud of the way our defense played. Number one, holding to a great offense like that with Ivan Drago as a quarterback that has a cannon that can sling the ball around and some great experienced receivers, holding them to 17 points is a really, really great thing. And honestly, we look at the game, we could have held them to less. There was a couple blown coverages in there that you get because it's week one, and you only have 20 practices before that week one game. So excited about the future of the defense, but can't be prouder of the way our guys played up front. What do we have? 6 sacks, getting after that quarterback. Could have had some more. We did have some guys bounce off the quarterback. He was 6'5", 250, and some of our linebackers actually bounced off of him. It was pretty bad. It was like hitting a marble statue sometimes. But we got him down more often than not, and I can't be prouder of the way the guys played.
As coaches, especially this year with a lot of new players, freshmen and some sophomores in there or whatever, do you see the fact that you analyze, you got 3-4 weeks of preseason practice and off season, but really the best way to analyze talent is during an actual game. Is that right?
Absolutely. Guys can do the right things in practice every single day, but when it gets to the game, they're not making the plays because whether they're playing tentative or just not tackling well, because obviously we're not going to tackle every single practice. I wouldn't have a running back alive if we did that. Okay, so that's a big part of things too. And we played the Bluffton scrimmage, and that was okay. That's fine, but you got to see them in game situations. Okay, and especially for these younger guys, before week one, we didn't have a JV game, so some of them just we didn't see play. Now we have a couple JV games under our belt. I think we're getting a better idea of the guys that can get out there and make plays against OAC competition, hopefully.
All right, real good. Coach Scott Donaldson, our first segment here. We'll take a break. We'll come back, talk to a couple players, and then we'll talk to defensive coordinator Jakubcin. And that's Branden Jakubcin. We'll talk to him, and then we'll get back with the coach here at the last segment, and we'll talk about how things are going in preparation for the Capital game. That'll be Saturday night away at Bexley, 7 o'clock. And if you can't make the game, we hope you do, but if you can't make the game, you can listen to WTTF for all the action. John Kearns here at the Berg Bistro, 1850. We'll have more of the show coming up after this, so please stay tuned.
I'm Elijah Breckbill, play safety. I'm a junior and health science major. You're starting a band group. What teammates are in your band? I have to say Tyler Matuzik, Dylan Martyr, Terrence Cole. They're all a real funny group of guys, so that would be a really funny band group I picked. If you play another position, what would it be? I would say probably kicker, because I play kicker also. Thoughts on the new field? I really like the new field. I really like the two-tone turf and the orange end zones. It really just brings all Heidelberg together. I think it'd be really fun to play on it. If you could be on a game show, which would it be? I'd probably say Family Feud. It'd be funny.
What family members does you have with you?
Probably my dad, mom, and brother, and sister. Favorite team? I'd have to say the Pittsburgh Steelers.
God bless.
Shout out to Mom, you're the best.
Okay, welcome back for segment number 2 here of our show here at the Berg Bistro 1850 on the campus of Heidelberg University. John Kearns, your host tonight, as the Berg getting ready for game number 2, and the most important game is always the next one. It's the opener Saturday night at Capitol. And we talked earlier about the first game, which is an exciting 21-17 victory in the non-conference action this year. The one game against Olivet College in Michigan came down here across the street at Herman Stadium and won that with 2 touchdowns in the last 5.5 minutes of play. And with us right now is a freshman, and I told Zach that I'm not sure if we've had a freshman on the show before, especially this early in the season, but you got on the show tonight because of your great performance. This is Zach Blackiston. He's a freshman linebacker, 6'4", 198. Wears number 82, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay, and you're from Maslin Perry, and off the air before we started, most people have heard of Maslin, Washington, because that's kind of the famous Maslin school, but there are actually 4 high schools in Maslin or the immediate Maslin area, right?
Yes, there is.
And I want you to name those.
Maslin, Washington, Maslin Jackson, Maslin Tuslaw, and the best one, Maslin Perry.
That's right. You went there, so that's the best one. How was your high school career there? Did you guys have some good teams? And who was your head coach at Maslin Perry?
We had some very good teams, yes. But the head coach was Keith Wakefield. He coached at Mount Union for a while, came back. My sophomore year, I played with Mr. Ohio, Keyshawn Sims. Mm-hmm. We made it to the state title game and lost to Cincinnati LaSalle 42-0, I think it was. And then my junior year, for Division II, I got first team All-Ohio, and we made it to a state title game, and we lost 14-7. And then senior year, got bumped back up to D1, and got first team All-Ohio, defensive player of the year for the Northeast region, and then got knocked out by St. Ignatius in the playoffs first round. All
right, Zach, so every time I have a guest on a player, I ask how they made it to Heidelberg. Maslin's not real close, Northeast Ohio, and that's kind of the hotbed of high school football, not only in Ohio, but in the country, too. Well known. There's so many schools, including Maslin Perry, in that area, Canton, McKinley, and just name them all, but hotbed for high school football. And how did you make your way over to Tiffin, Ohio, and playing for Heidelberg?
It's actually funny. So Coach Donaldson was recruiting my best friend Shane to come play quarterback here, and I just asked for him to ask Coach if I could come up to a game, and he said yeah, and I loved it. My first time on campus, it just felt right.
So you came to a game last year, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, was it one of the night games?
Yes, it was a night game. I think my first one was against Otterburn when the overtime win is the first game I came to.
All right, that's real good because I remember that game, and that's it's an advantage too when you play night games, as Coach said, right, that you get to bring more players in when it's a Saturday night game. And so and maybe that had something to do with you coming here to Heidelberg. But, a lot of players say they like the campus, they like the atmosphere. The stadium over here is, we call it brand new still, new field turf this year. So just a great atmosphere for small college football.
I would 100% agree with that. The campus is beautiful. What I like is the classrooms are a smaller size. Mm-hmm. So I think my highest class is 30 people maybe, instead of going to a really big college and having 100 and something people and the professor doesn't know your name.
That's for sure. Everybody knows your name here, that's for sure. I mean, everybody's name. So, well, Zach, what a monster game against Olivet. 16 tackles, 3 sacks, 5.5 tackles for a loss. And I have to ask you, when did you first come into the ball game? Because you weren't, you didn't start, and really you were, I think, third on the depth chart. So once you got into the game, they didn't want to bring you out. But when did you first enter the game a couple weeks ago?
I was starting nickel, a pass rush group, and I think it was 6 plays into the game is when I first stepped on, and then the second play is when we ran a stunt and I got a sack.
Okay, very good. We call your name quite a bit, and we're looking at the depth chart and say, where did he come from? We know we studied the roster. We knew about you and all that, but weren't expect you to come in maybe so soon. So just a great night, and you have to thank your teammates too, and the linebacking core, and how about naming some teammates that you played with, and then your position coach.
Some teammates I definitely couldn't do without the defensive line. Matt Davenport, Pecoraro, Matt, we just call him Military Matt. I don't really know. I think it's Matt Myers, Aiden Ammons, and then Justin and Barry on the outside core, and then Pat McCarthy, Fink. They just pushed me so much during camp. It really helped. And then my position coach is Scott Donaldson.
Okay, and before we let you go, we'll talk about Capital. That'll be another night game in Columbus in the suburb of Bexley. They have a nice field there, too, nice stadium. And, it's a team that really only won 1 game last year, but their first game they lost to Mount St. Joseph down in Cincinnati. But then Marietta, a team that is expected to have a good season again this year, they went down to Marietta, way down in southeast Ohio, and they lost that game 51-50. They scored, 20-some seconds to go, maybe 26 seconds, went for 2 to win it, and came up short. But 50 points, up on Marietta. So that's going to be a little challenge for your defense this week, because they have some talented players.
Yes, they do. They have 3 really good receivers. They have a good receiving core, and their quarterback, he's a freak. He does not go down easy. He's not afraid to run it as soon as he sees a crease. So us as a defense, we're going to try to keep him in the pocket, make him make hard decisions, and try to get to him.
All right, real good. Zach, we'll let you go because we have to talk with your teammate, Collin Pecoraro, up next. But best of luck. We look forward to calling your name a lot again this Saturday night at Capital.
All right, thank you.
All right, real good. If you want to go over and get Collin over here and switch, and we'll talk to him. But up next, we'll bet number 42, Collin Pecoraro, and he is from Cleveland. Not too far from where Zach was from, Cleveland Benedictine, more in the city of Cleveland, but not a whole far away from where Zach Blackiston's from. So we'll get the headphones on here with Collin Pecoraro from Cleveland Benedictine. I did a lot of Fremont Ross games over the years, and maybe when you were younger, remember playing Fremont Ross, but I did a couple games in Fremont with Benedictine, and a couple, I think, when you played at, you still play at Bedford?
Mm-hmm. Yep, our home field was Bedford. Yep.
Right. And I remember going there a couple times as well. So now here's a little confusing thing. You're in the classroom. What class are you?
I'm a senior in the classroom right now, yep.
On the football field, what are you?
Sophomore.
Okay. That's what got me a little confused. And
yep.
So So you played really your first year at Heidelberg last year on the field, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I originally came here for baseball, and then after a few weeks I decided not to continue with the team. And I was in my sophomore year, and I actually realized, you know what, I'm really missing the lights and stuff like that. And talked to Coach Donaldson, and came back out junior year, and it was a really good thing. So I just wanted to continue it.
Okay, really good. So, I know that your school always has great football teams. You know, occasionally have an off season, but when you were playing in high school for the Bennies, what kind of teams did you have? What was your records and playoffs and all that?
So going into my sophomore year, we actually had a down season. We were 3-7, but we knew that my sophomore class had a lot of potential, and we went into my junior year, lost in the regional championship to Cardinal Mooney. That was the 21-17 game. It was really close, and we finished off, I think, at 9-3. So that was still a good season, but just came up a little bit short. And then going into my senior year, we were actually 14-1. We won the state championship, which is a really special thing. Benedictine actually strives on that. We always try to win one in each decade, and we actually have won one, every time since then. So it's pretty special to be part of the tradition there.
You know, I went throughout the years, a lot of people mispronounce the school, including myself, and it's actually Benedictine, right?
Yeah, it's Benedictine.
And I make that mistake too, that I catch myself, but I tend to say Benedictine, but that's not really correct, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, my dad still does the same exact thing, so don't feel bad about that. Yeah.
Right, and when they played Fremont, a lot of people would say that, and I had somebody say, well, it's not really, it's so, but anyway, but you've always had a great tradition in that school, and a lot of great players throughout the years go to that school. But last year, your first year here, played 9 games, had 12 tackles and 3 sacks, and you kind of almost matched that with your first game against Olivet, had 9 tackles. And what a great comeback, for the offense with 2 touchdowns in the last, 5.5 minutes to pull that one out. We were getting a little concerned with the offense kind of sputtering a little bit. That they really had to get it going, in a hurry, and they did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, as a defense, all we can really do is just worry about our side of the ball. We just have to, put our trust into the offense and let them do their thing. We knew they were going to do their thing eventually. I mean, they have a lot of young guys, a lot of new guys as well. Trey stepping up now as a starting quarterback this year. This is a big time for him, and his first starting game was, under the lights, senior year. I mean, I couldn't think of a bigger stage for him, but it was great to see him to, really step up and get us that second touchdown and really get the offense going. And, as defensively, like I said, we just worried about our thing. We kept throwing punches. We kept, standing up the offense and doing, our thing, and we just got to continue that.
Well, they scored, the offense scored to go ahead with 1:11, I think, to play in the game. So Olivet still had a chance to win the ball game. So really it was up to that defense to snuff out any hopes that they had. And you guys got the job done the last minute plus.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And like I said, we saw that minute, and, we were doing it all game. We had a couple MAs and stuff like that throughout the game, but we knew that it was just 1 minute and 10 seconds, 1:11 seconds, and all we had to do was just give it our best effort, and that's what we did, and we came out on top.
All right, so it gives you a shot in the arm. Got the week off, too, to prepare for the Ohio Athletic Conference. You played last year. I know Capital had a tough season last year, but I was telling your teammate Zach that they scored 50 points in a 1-point loss at Marietta. So they got some good offensive firepower. So your defense will be tested not only for their quarterback through the air, but they have some good running backs too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they all, every team has their weapons. And, our coaches, they always put their time in to really, pick apart an offense and see where their strengths are and also see where their weaknesses are as well. And, defensively, we know where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, and we know where we need to step up and what we need to do to basically limit those guys that are having good games. Because, everybody's bound to have a good game. Everybody's bound to have a bad game as well. So all we can do, week in, week out is just find their strengths and just attack them head on.
All right, best of luck on Saturday night at Capitol. And we've been talking with Collin Pecoraro. I believe I pronounced that right,
yep,
right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Very good, all right. It's probably more important to pronounce the last name correctly than anything else. But best of luck, and we'll see you then Saturday night in Bexley, Ohio. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk with defensive coordinator Branden Jakubcin next, and then we'll get our final segment with Coach Donaldson, talk more about that Capital game. This is John Kearns live here from the Berg Bistro 1850 on campus of Heidelberg University, and this is the Scott Donaldson Show, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Drew Ronsky, I'm a sophomore. I play kicker and I'm a computer science major. Favorite drill in practice? I don't really have a favorite drill, but if I had to pick one, it'd be any tackling drill, because I usually destroy everybody in that. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? I would probably fly. I mean, I already have super strength, so I would probably fly so I could get anywhere faster. My go-to dance move? Honestly, it'd probably have to be right here. What song has to be on your pregame playlist? New Freezer for sure, 100%. Ideal vacation, and who would you take with you? I'd probably have to take my best friend Corbin Cantner, and I would go to Hawaii. Shout out to head coach, Coach Donaldson, he's my guy. Shout out to Coach Blake, he's also my guy.
Bistro, as we have segment number 3 here on this Thursday night, a couple nights away from our second game of the year and the first Ohio Athletic Conference game of the year for the Heidelberg Student Prince football team. It'll be at Capitol. But right now, joining me is a veteran coach, defensive coordinator Branden Jakubcin. And Branden, we've had you on the show a few times over the years. And how many years now here in Tiffin at Heidelberg?
I think it's my 13th season here,
wow,
I believe. Yeah, so a while.
And you started out as maybe a grad assistant, right?
Actually, earlier than that, I played 1 year and then became a student coach and then graduate assistant and then moved on up from there.
Yeah, you've worked your way all the way up, maybe not to the head coach yet, but but defensive coordinator. And you guys got the job done a couple weeks ago against Olivet in a game that, the offense, they found some life in the last 5.5 minutes, down 17-7. A lot of concerned people, but Trace Reynolds, I think, made the decision we're going to win this ball game. He had a nice 44-yard run, then a nice 17-yard pass to Jerome. And then your defense had one last thing to do. Your defense had to stop them in the last minute and 11 to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And, with the offense, it's tough week one because you don't really know what that offense is going to be or the defense is going to be like. So for our offense, they sputtered early, but then, Coach Lewis and the offensive guys figured out that they couldn't stop any quarterback runs. So run and trace was the answer, and you guys saw that at the end of the game, really that it helped us. I bet Trace probably had 100 yards just in the second half alone, And then for our guys to go out there, I thought the whole second half, we gave up 3 points in the second half. I thought they did a phenomenal job of getting off the field. The one thing I was pretty happy about that, early in the game, and, as it gets into halftime and the offense starts rolling, as people's emotions, get worried about dumb penalties at bad times, but we didn't have any of that. And the guys understood, hey, we got to get off the field, get the ball back to the offense. At the end of the game, hey, it's on us. It's got to be these 11 guys out there got to get a stop so we can win this game, and, it happened. So.
Well, the overall team is inexperienced, probably the most inexperienced team in quite a while, but a great group of freshmen, some sophomores in there. And your defense especially, it seems like, you have more of a veteran, maybe offensive line. Of course, the special teams are pretty good shape, but your defense, a lot of question marks. And you had a guy step in, a freshman, true freshman, Zach Blackiston, who wasn't in the first two teams really. You put him into the game, and it was hard to take him out because he did a lot of great things, ended up with 16 tackles, 3 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss for a guy that didn't start and a freshman. But he really proved himself on that last, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, the one thing is tough. I know you guys kind of touched on it earlier is, we get, what we have 19 practices before our first game, and we had a scrimmage. But we scrimmaged Bluffton. There was only 12 live plays the entire day. Mm-hmm. So, and we don't tackle during practice very often. So you go into that first game, and you have freshmen that you've maybe never actually seen tackle somebody since they stepped foot on campus. So it's tough to really evaluate them until they get in the live situation of, hey, this is a real game situation. And it was good to see some of those guys step up. Zach did a phenomenal job, and, he started out there, and we can't take him off the field. He's doing pretty well, I know at my position group, I had a freshman play a lot for me, Ty Freeman. He ended up with 3 pass breakups. He did a phenomenal job for us as well. And just those younger guys really stepping up. And that was the nice thing to see is, you had some guys that have maybe been just on special teams for the first and then now they get a chance to actually play defense and play that side of the ball and prove, really their worth out there and, hey, how much they should be on the field.
Well, I've talked a lot about, Zach and then Collin as well, but how about a few more shout-outs to some of your defensive guys that really stepped up in the first game?
Yeah, just, starting at the D-line and working backwards, like you said, Collin and Zach played a great job. Matt Davenport did a good job. He got kind of moved around positionally. He knows all the positions, so he did a phenomenal job being able to bounce back and forth. Inside linebackers, Tyler Matuzik's kind of been that third guy in for the last couple of years behind Trevor and Nick Walsh. And, he stayed out there, and he had a great game. In the secondary, guys that stood out, Jordan Green, really his big time to shine here as a senior. He played a great game. Elijah Breckbill, Jermaine Burkett, they all did a phenomenal job, Terrence Cole, and then, some of the younger guys that we had rotating in that haven't really played a ton. Jaden Stanton started, he played pretty well, and Ty Freeman in the secondary. And then an inside linebacker, 2 guys that have never played inside linebacker before were Dylan Martyr and Eric Hagedorn, and they played the bulk of the reps in there as well. So pretty happy with it. And the one thing is it was a whole team effort out there defensively because going into the game, you don't know who your go-to guy is. You don't know who the guy's going to stand out. And you saw, by the end of it, the guy with the most stats was a freshman for us.
Right. Well, here's the thing, you have a bye week. And you play your non-conference game, so a lot of analysis between game 1 and game 2. Do you like that bye week when it is early in the season?
Yes and no. I like it for the fact that, one, the young guys get to play a JV game also on that week, and then we get to evaluate them a little bit more in practice, so it gives us a chance to really figure out the depth chart a little bit more. On the negative side of it, we got to play 9 straight conference games in the toughest conference in the nation, right. So that's hey, if you got depth issues, you better figure them out because you got 9 straight games, so that's kind of the negative about it, but, the positive is we get an extra week to evaluate the young guys.
Okay, up next will be at Capitol on Saturday night, and as I mentioned before, had a tough season last year. Always had some offense, but just couldn't get over the hump and get, only 1 win. But I know they got thumped pretty good by a good Mount St. Joseph team week 1. But the second week, now they're one of the teams that didn't have the bye week last week. And they went to at Marietta and lost a thriller 51-50. They could have won that game if they would have converted the 2-point conversion. But how about that game? I know Coach said you guys were checking it out, but 50 points up on Marietta.
Yeah, we were actually at a wedding. And so we had, I think, actually, a guy that played here for us, Matt Greaves, he was giving the best man speech, and we had a phone sitting on the table watching the score go by and watching the live feed of the stats as Coach Greaves was talking up there. But, yeah, it was, offensively, Capital is really good. They have a quarterback that I'm assuming leads our conference in almost every single category probably after last week. The amazing thing that out there is they've attempted 90 passes as a team, and they haven't thrown an interception yet. That's something that, I've been preaching with my guys. Hey, we got to get one of those. We should get a couple of them. But that game, if you love offense, it was a great game to watch. Me, who's the guy that likes stopping them and likes some defense, I didn't really enjoy it too much, But offensively, they are a very good team. It goes through their quarterback. The Wibbler kid, he is really good. His biggest thing from last year to this year is he runs the football. Last year he didn't scramble and run around too much. This year he takes off and he's their main running threat. They actually have quarterback run plays this year designed for him to keep the football. So we gotta stop him to win the game going forward.
All right, real good talking with Branden Jakubcin, the defensive coordinator here at Heidelberg, and we're about out of time, but we'll see you down in Bexley on Saturday night and get your defense going and get that first win in the conference. And that's always important, too, to get off to a good start in the OAC. And no matter who you play, and no matter if you play them at home or away in this league, you better be ready to play every game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why I truly believe, it's the toughest conference in the nation. You can't go into a game in our conference and say, all right, guys, we're going to win, or they're not very good. You can't do that in the OAC, because every week something could happen. Every week, there's always somebody that sticks with somebody that on paper shouldn't. You look at paper and say, oh, their defense isn't real good, and they hold somebody. Or, hey, their offense isn't real good, and they score 40 points. So in our conference, it's a dogfight, week in and week out. What you got to do is you got to go 1-0 each week, have the confidence to go in the next week and go 1-0 again. So right now we're 0-0, and we got to go 1-0 on Saturday.
That's, I guess, why they play the games on the field and not on paper, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hey, before I let you go, we understand that this summer you were married, so congratulations there. Going into the 2018 season with a new bride, right?
Yeah, she's actually here. You guys can't see her, but she's back there, and our daughter, too. Yeah, so
you're going to turn the camera around there.
Yeah,
there you go. The lights on your new wife there, and daughter. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we got married this summer. It was awesome. All the coaches were there. It was a good time, and went on a honeymoon. Left the country for the first time ever, so that was pretty cool.
And did Robin help out?
Yeah, Robin did a great job. She did our wedding video. The second I brought it home, I didn't get home from work till about midnight, and my wife Danny said, "We're watching this." And so we stayed up till about 1 in the morning watching the wedding video, knowing that we both had to wake up early and go to work the next day. But we were that excited that we had to go do that. So,
well, congratulations to both of you. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with the final segment of the Scott Donaldson Show here at the Berg Bistro, 1850. And we'll talk more about that Capital game and a few other things here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back on WTTF.
DeMonte Richmond, sports management major, inside linebacker. If you could trade places with anyone in the world, who would it be and why? I'd trade places with my big brother, just because of the fact that he's like a big role model to me and everything, and I just want to be like him or better than him in life. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? I'd rather, I'd like to be fast, because I'm already slow and everything right now, and I think it helped me with football a lot more. Celebrity look-alike? Ooh, celebrity look-alike. Everybody said like Uncle Elroy for Friday, so I'll take that one. Thoughts on the new field? I love it. It brings me back like I was back in Cleveland, playing for my old high school, Glenville. Go-to dance move, the folks. Shout out to all the coaches out here for making me get better and everything, my teammates, and I just play football. Oh, also shout out to my mom back home, everything's for you.
Okay, welcome back. John Kearns and Coach Scott Donaldson at the Berg Bistro. Time flies when you're having fun. I look up and we only have 10 more minutes of the show, and it seems like it just started. So, Coach, looking forward to broadcasting the game Saturday night at Capitol. Always a good host down there, a nice stadium, and similar to ours where they have all the seating on the one side. And one thing about Capitol, I think they have, if you turn around and face the other direction in the press box, it's a basketball arena in there, and so they have everything connected. But always, a competitive team. I know they struggled last year, but And I'm hoping that Thomas Webler is a senior because it seems like he's been there for quite a long time.
I'm praying to God it's the last time I'm ever going to see him. Please. Capital's known for having quarterbacks play for about 9 years. I think Rocky Pentello played there for an entire decade. But God, I hope he's a senior.
And another good start for him in 2 games. Of course, Capital didn't have the bye week last week. They're going to have that maybe in a couple weeks. But they played Mount St. Joseph and they played Marietta. In those 2 games, 712 yards of passing, 8 touchdowns. And he's also the leading rusher on the team with 164 yards and 1 touchdown. So he's going to be kind of a target for sure for your defense.
There's no doubt. Like I said, every offense goes through the quarterback, but even more so when you're talking about Capital. That kid is so good. Obviously, as you know, John, we give nicknames to all the quarterbacks we're going to face. He is 100% the gunslinger. He has so much confidence in what he's doing. I mean, he's going to throw into coverage. He's going to throw in his guys. He's got some great receivers to throw to that more often than not are going to come down with the ball. I mean, with all those yards you see and how many pass attempts he's had and how many completions, he has 0 interceptions on the year. Which is ungodly. Is unbelievable, and his 2 best targets, the Barnett kid, the big kid, number 15, and the Stanford kid, number 3, they're 2 of the best receivers in this conference, So you're looking at, if not the best, one of the best quarterbacks in this conference and 2 of the best receivers. Those 3 guys are dangerous right there. And Wibbler's a guy that if you give him time and you give him, comfortability of what he's seeing, in coverage, he's a guy that he can score 50, 60, and you blink and you go, what just happened? Yeah. So he's that dangerous.
Well, if Capital, they have to shore up their defense. They gave up a lot of points. They gave up a lot of points last year. But if they get together and really shore up their defense, this could be a very dangerous team for anybody in this league.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. You saw that last week. Marietta is a solid football team. They went 6-4 last year, I think. And gave up 50 points to a team that was 1-8, 1-9 last year. So like I said, they're dangerous. They're very, very dangerous. Luckily, we have 2 weeks of film on them. They only have 1 week of film on us, and that won't be as lucky here in about week 5 and 6 when they have a bye. But we're coming back healthy. We're coming back strong, and I think we're going to have some good answers to get that Wibbler kid on the ground, hopefully.
I think it's the 3rd year for their head coach, Chad Rogaszewski. I hope I pronounced that right.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a really long name. I know
wrong
that
every time.
But this is his 3rd year. But I think he's going to be successful. It's just going to take some time. It's going to be played down at Bexley, their first home game.
Yeah, and talking to Chad and Coach Rogo, as I call him because I can't pronounce his name right, and just spit on everyone when I try to say it. But, he's a really great dude. He's a great coach. And they've had some other issues, some, player issues, just the fact that they having to field the full roster and things like that. But they get one night game a year, and this is actually the game they won last year. It was a night game against Muskie early in the season. So they picked us for their night game. Okay, they wanted one early. They wanted to pick us to kind of show their place in the OAC. They want to knock off one of the top teams, and we've been one of the top teams the last decade in the OAC. So they wanted that opportunity at night in front of, like we talked about before, night games bring a lot of recruits, a lot of fans, and especially when you're in a city like them, it should be a pretty raucous atmosphere we're going into there. There's no doubt about that.
All right, it's been almost 2 weeks since your first game. What are your main concerns going into the Capital game? I know there's a lot of positives, but as far as concerns that you maybe got a hold of in the last 10 days or so going into the first OAC game?
Well, I think every week, your concerns are only things you can control, okay? I can't control, if Wibbler's going to be, their quarterback, the gunslinger, is going to be on 100% of the time or off or makes a bad decision here or there. The only thing we can focus on, the only thing I can be concerned about as a coach is going to be what we can control, okay? And the biggest thing that we're concerned about, number one, is running the ball effectively and getting the ball to our playmakers on offense, okay? I think we match up well with them defensively as far as their defense against our offense, and I think if we can get the ball on the perimeter in our athletes' hands, things are going to go well there. Okay, but the biggest thing we need to do there is going to be to protect the quarterback. They have a couple of guys that are pretty good pass rushers, and I think we got to be able to give Trace some time for these athletes to open up their routes and some times like that. But we got to be able to run the ball, okay? And that's the thing I'm concerned with from week one. Like I said, Olivet had a great front six, and Capital's not as big as Olivet. There's no doubt about it. But we have to be able to run the football effectively against this team. Marietta was able to do it last week, and they've had a great run game for a couple of years now. But that's something we really have to go out and do. And defensively, just making sure we're not breaking coverage. We're staying in coverage because that kid's going to run around in the backfield there for seems like a half hour when you're coaching against him. But he's going to run around there. We're going to miss a couple of sacks here and there, and that's going to happen. But the biggest thing is that we stay in coverage and keep our heads about us.
All right, Coach. Last question of the night is that Berg fans travel well, no matter where you go to. I always look over and see a lot of orange, black, and red on the far side. This is a night game in Columbus, Bexley, to be exact. But hopefully a lot of fans will come down. And if you can't make it for some reason on Saturday night, then you can listen to the game on WTTF. And that's AM 1600, FM 93.3, and on the web at WTTF.com. But hopefully the visitor stands will be full and cheering on the team on Saturday night.
I hope so. Like you said, the Heidelberg's always traveled well, and hopefully we can get a lot of our guys that live in the Columbus area to come down and bring their families and have a good time, hopefully cheering on a good Berg victory.
All right, 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll be on the air with the pregame show about 6:30 on Saturday night, and that's it. That's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks to Scott Donaldson, the head football coach here at Heidelberg. Also a guest tonight, defensive coordinator Branden Jakubcin, and 2 players, Zach Blackiston and Collin Pecoraro. That's it. John Kern saying so long from the Berg Bistro. We'll be back with you again next Thursday night with Coach Donaldson, hopefully another assistant coach, a couple more players. But until Saturday night, we will talk to you later, and have a great Thursday night.
Thanks for listening to this evening's Scott Donaldson Show from the Berg Bistro. Tonight's show has been brought to you by the Berg Bistro and these community-minded sponsors: Kimmel Cleaners, Harrison Price Insurance, National Machinery, Subway of Tiffin, Tiffin Brake and Wheel, and the Tiffin Buffalo Wild Wings. Join us again next time as we talk Heidelberg football on the Scott Donaldson Show here on WTTF, AM 1600, FM 93.3, and on the web at WTTF.com.